Hi, it's Bumble. Welcome back to my channel. So I only have roughly half an hour to talk about this. I would like more time, but I have some stuff to do. So I finally got around to reading the full box set for the Twilight Princess manga. I don't remember if I'd already posted some videos on it. I had made a couple in like the first 3 volumes, if that had ended up on this channel or my older channel. But yeah, I got the box set for Christmas a couple years ago, and I remember I was gonna read it like 1 volume at a time and make a video on each one, and then I feel like I was forgetting information and it was taking me longer, so I ended up restarting from volume 1. It's 11 volumes, and I actually spent the entire day reading it and just finished it, so it was an all-day effort. I have some notes. I'm gonna like skip around with my notes, but before and this is going to be going over the entire storyline with the volumes and everything. So yeah, spoilers for the manga and spoilers for the game as well, because you know the manga's based in the game. They do tweak around some things, of course. There's some changes I really liked I'm going to talk about. So yeah, spoilers for both of those. Especially if you haven't finished the game, definitely don't be watching this. So I'll give some of my general thoughts first, then I'll kind of bounce around between my notes and stuff. I liked a lot of the changes. I liked that, you get to see scenes that play out as, like a lot of the backstory cutscenes, especially backstory stuff. I think I was really happy with, especially some of the stuff that was related to Midna, that you get to see things that were talked about in the game, but now you get to actually see them as like full scenes and everything. That was really cool. Link being able to talk is a big one, but I know they do that a lot for like silent protagonists and like manga adaptations and stuff. And I think that helped with like understanding more of like his character, but also his like bonds with other characters, especially Midna. I feel like their friendship turned like romance towards the end, actually. Definitely strengthens because they're able to talk the whole time. That was like definitely one of my favorite parts of the manga. I think Zelda is definitely the character that gets kind of the most improvements from this version, because I have like different Zeldas depending on the game, but the one in Twilight Princess I feel like is one of my least favorites, because I feel like you don't really get to see much of her first off, or really much of her personality and how she's like supposedly knows Midna and stuff, and they seem like they're closer more than like Zelda and Link. And this one, it's funny because like Link and Zelda are like basically strangers the entire storyline, which makes sense. They only get to meet each other like a couple times, and then that's kind of about it. And I think it was also helpful that I'd played the game before, and it made it, I think, easier for me to understand like some of the scenes and stuff, but there was a lot from the game I hadn't remembered. And the manga goes like so in depth on a lot of stuff. Some stuff did kind of feel like a bit too long, or that I was kind of skipping through. I actually did skip through some of the fights. Like they don't show the full dungeons. It's just like Link going in there, gaining the item, and then it immediately goes to the boss fight. So that definitely cuts things down, like story-wise, scene-wise, and everything. And then they also give Link a backstory as well, of like him not actually being from Orden Village, and instead being from this like desert border town that like protects Hyrule Castle, and he causes this incident in his past that like causes the town to disappear, where it turns out to end up in like the Twilight Realm or something, and he carries this sort of guilt through that affects his character and his whole journey throughout the manga of like really deciding if he's the hero like chosen by the gods or not, like to himself. Like he knows that he is, and also like what he's really fighting for. So like him and Zelda are definitely like the 2 characters I think get the most improvements and stuff. But Zelda especially, I'll talk about that as I'm going through my notes. So I'm gonna kind of skip around through some of them. I took these notes like as I was reading through stuff, so some of them I think my opinions have changed. But yeah, I have about half an hour to get through this. So one of the big changes I thought was kind of interesting. Okay, so with the game, with like Midna's true form and stuff, because for the entire thing, even in like the backstory cutscenes in the game, she's just seen in the imp form. And then your big thing at the end with the story, and it's supposed to be like more of a big emotional scene, is she gets her true form back once you like finally beat Ganondorf and stuff, and it's supposed to be like this really big moment because like the player and Link have never seen her in this form before. And that's really funny because like literally like the start of the first volume, you immediately get to see her true form, compared to like the game, which is a spoiler. That's why I was like, hey, if you haven't played the game, don't be listening to me talk about this or reading the manga, because I didn't think it would be spoiling. Like that's like one of the biggest things with the ending in the game. I didn't know how to feel about that at first, but I think with the way they kind of keep showing her throughout the story, which I'll talk about, is kind of interesting. I actually do really like the beginning. It has like this sort of scene, I think, what was it, because I've started reading this at like 8:30 this morning. It's like currently 7 p.m. It was like Midna, I think, when Xant takes over or something like that, and she's like giving it's her giving the backstory of her people and like them being exiled to the Twilight realm for like trying to take over the world of light and stuff. Yeah, I think that was pretty much it. And she's accompanied by a golden wolf that's like her closest companion, really like her only friend, and that character has some backstory stuff as well, which it like takes a while into the story to like reveal it to the characters, but like I recognized who it was immediately. But yeah, it's interesting. Her true form's just revealed immediately, but you get like a couple scenes throughout the manga where she'll like shift back to her like true form and stuff, not like literally, but it'll be in like a visual sense, but like the way they use it and how that kind of ties her more to Link, I think is really interesting. And and some of my notes also relate to like comparing to like my experience with the games, and with stuff with the manga. I feel like art style wise, I think the manga like looks nicer than the character designs for some of the game, like the art style and stuff. Because that's on the other subject with like Midna, because like her big line at the end of the game, which she still has in this, is something of like, oh, am I so beautiful you're left speechless or whatever, which I always felt was kind of like a bit cocky. I didn't think she was like that pretty in the game, but she does look beautiful in the manga, like every scene she's in, so I feel like that part kind of like hit harder and stuff. But yeah, I had like different opinions on characters based on here, where I didn't find some of them as annoying. Like Elia, in the games, I always found her really annoying, but I think throughout reading through the manga and stuff, I didn't really find her as annoying. She came off as like, pleasant. She's like worried about Link, but not like obsessively or anything. I feel like from what I remember with the games, it seemed like they were like a little bit romantic towards each other, or kind of like implied that way, and there's still like a little bit of that. I think mostly just towards the beginning. I think because Link's feelings sort of shift around, where it seems like he kind of likes Elia at first, and then once he's traveling a bit longer with like Midna and stuff, is kind of more interested in her. Sorry, I'm like out of breath. I'm like, because I have a limited amount of time, I'm like trying to get my thoughts in order. But yeah, I found her less annoying. I think the main reason I found her annoying in the games is like the tutorial section. I remember being like a little bit lengthy, and she gets mad at Link at like the beginning of the game about Epona. Like you find her and she's like taking care of Epona, and I used to joke around with my cousin of like, oh, she cares more about the horse than you. I forgot about that. Yeah, the entire tutorial section from the game, I think, is just gone. Like I think there's a part where Link still has to like help transport pumpkins or something like that, but you don't have that initial cutscene with Elia with like the horse or anything. I mean, she does get to see Link a little bit at the beginning, so I think because of stuff like that, being excluded, I found her less annoying. Link's backstory gets introduced pretty early on. I thought that was pretty cool, and it's also like an explanation for him being able to like use a sword. And I like the whole thing where he's like completely happy in Orden Village, but like desperately does not want the villagers to know about his past or anything. Midna, when you get to see her in her true form at the beginning, she seems a lot kinder when she's in imp form. That does not last. But yeah, we get to hear her thoughts from like before the Xant takeover, and I like how they really emphasize, not just at the beginning but throughout the entire manga, of like how much she like truly cares about her people and her feeling bad for like abandoning them and stuff. And And then she has a wolf companion, like I mentioned, and I thought, like, oh, maybe that's part of the reason she, like, prefers, you know, when Link's in his wolf form later. But yeah, getting on the backstory stuff is cool, of, like, Zant taking over the Twilight Realm, getting to see Midna in her true form, Ganon being sealed away, Ganondorf, I think it was a cutscene in the game of, like, Ganondorf showing up to Hyrule Castle and having to fight, like, Zelda and stuff. I forgot a lot about the stuff with Zelda, to be honest. Like, they go to see her at the beginning, and they mention about, like, yeah, you're able to leave at any time, and I forgot how she explains, like, yeah, I feel bad, can't do anything about my people, so she's, like, keeping herself there. And that first meeting's kind of interesting once you go, like, kind of further in the manga, and I was wondering of, like, how Zelda's able to recognize Midna. It turns out they have, like, a shared past and stuff, and Zelda even, I think, later says something of, like, oh, I've been a prisoner my whole life, like, being the princess and not having the freedom to do what she wants, so she doesn't really even mind being stuck in Hyrule Castle, like, she's keeping herself there. But yeah, I forgot the reason that you go see her in the beginning is because she has, like, the power to, like, clairvoyance or whatever to, like, see visions and stuff, so Midna goes to her of, like, hey, we gotta figure out where to go and stuff. I like that because it's a manga, you know, the characters are able to make, like, more, like, silly facial expressions, as I call them. Hold on a second. Damn. I found out my friends are watching Shrek 2, and that's my favorite Shrek movie, but I got some other stuff to do. Anyway. But yeah, they get, like, more sillier facial expressions. That already fits Midna anyway, but I like that it means that Link, and also, you know, him having the ability to talk, is actually, like, a bit more playful here. Like, he's not the most serious of the Links I've seen when I'm, like, thinking back to the game. Like, there's a couple times when he smiles. Like, I remember, like, if you pick up a cat, I think Link automatically smiles, stuff like that. He definitely has some cool facial expressions in this game. Not the most expressive Link. I feel like that would still definitely go to the Wind Waker one, but yeah, I like that they get to be a little silly in this. That's cool. Or they sometimes have, like, similar personality traits, Link and Midna. Like, I noticed early on it's, like, almost the exact same panel too, like, pre-transition Link and Imp Midna, like, pre-Link turning into a wolf and stuff. They both make the same joke in the same pose of, like, charging people for money for services just to, like, mess with them and stuff. I thought that was so silly. And I like that sometimes we actually don't get to see Link's POV. Like, he is definitely the main character you're following through for about, like, 90% of the story, but sometimes we get to see like, it could be, like, Link's resting. I think it's in, like, the third volume. Link is resting in, like, the woods, and then we cut to see what the village kids are doing, and they're, like, getting taken to Kakariko Village and stuff. And I thought it was cool that, like, all those side characters you kind of meet throughout the game, because at the beginning it's, like, focusing on the kids, and then it focuses more on Aelia, especially when she loses her memory and gets, like, taken to Castletown and stuff, meeting the Resistance people. So I thought that was pretty cool. You get to focus on other characters. Everyone kind of gets enough screen time in a sense. The Golden Wolf I mentioned earlier, he's the hero of Shade, I guess, ghost of Link from, like, Ocarina of Time, which I'm kind of wondering about that. Like, I'd already known because it's revealed in the game as well. I'm just curious, like, timeline wise, when that happens. And this is the perspective of me who hasn't finished Majora's Mask, because I know with Ocarina of Time he gets, like, sent back in time as, like, a child, and then Majora's Mask happens, and then, you know, with this it's that he, like, dies, he has regrets, he doesn't get to, like, pass on his skills to the next generation. That's why he's kind of like a ghost helping Link throughout the game. He definitely has more of a role in the manga, which is pretty cool. Like, he gets to show up for the fight against Ganondorf. That was really cool. I wish that almost happened in the game. Not that he helps with, like, the final blow or anything, he's just there for a bit. But yeah, he shows up in the form of Golden Wolf, which he does in the game too. He teaches you, like, the howling songs and the sword skills and stuff, but when he's a Golden Wolf specifically in this, he actually accompanies Midna like before the Twilight realm gets taken over and stuff, when they actually end up as like friends, I guess. It sort of shows how she treats the Golden Wolf before it's revealed like who he actually is, that she does have a bit of a softer side. Like her reunion scene with him is really sweet. And then meanwhile for Link, when he sees the skeletal form for the hero's shade, it like freaks him out, because it's kind of a weird thing too, but it makes sense because like the hero's shade turns out to be someone that's watching both like Link and Midna, and like keeping an eye on the Twilight realm before like Ganondorf and Zant do like pretty much anything, because part of Link's backstory is like I said, lives in a desert town. He pulls out this sword that turns out to be sealing off part of the Twilight realm, and it causes Link's entire hometown to get sucked in. And when it's being sucked in, the hero shade appears and like grabs Link by the arm, and he has this like fear throughout almost the entire story of like until, or not the entire story, but like until he meets the hero shade again, of thinking like, oh shit, it's like the hand of death or whatever. And then it turns out like he realizes it was actually helping him and stuff. Mostly a lot of the reunion scenes where it's like characters haven't seen each other in a long time and they're back together again is really sweet. Like early on, the village kids and Link actually gets to reunite with them. I think almost like halfway in, that was kind of nice, and he like cries because he was worried about them and stuff. Oh yeah, I mentioned about Midna kind of shifting forms a little bit. I think the first time that happens is there's this one chapter where she's looking at the moon and like remembering about the Twilight realm and stuff, and then for like just a second Link sees Midna in her true form, and it wasn't completely clear to me if like Midna like literally shifts or if she even realized what he saw, because he mentions like, hey, there was a lady with like blue skin, and she's just like, nah, you're just seeing things. But I do think it's sweet that he gets to see her without like realizing that it's her, so it's still like, actually it doesn't even end up being a shock for him at the end, but before the end of the game. And that happens one more time. I'll talk about that as well. You know, there's some scenes, because I haven't played this game in probably like 10 years or something with like the Wii U version, that there's a lot of stuff in this that like I forgot about, that the manga kind of refreshed. Like I completely forgot about the part when Aelia ends up getting amnesia and stumbles into like Castletown and stuff, but there's some parts I like 100% clearly remember that I still get kind of the goosebumps about, of like playing those scenes. Like one of those is when Zant like goes to confront Midna and Link after they finish the water dungeon, and he takes all your collectibles, and like Midna's practically about to die or whatever, but there's this part of that I remember where he's like right next to her and saying like how he wants her or whatever, and it feels like just as creepy. I like still get that kind of tension of that scene of like Midna getting shoved into the light and like freaking out because, you know, she's like burning to death or whatever. Also, I just realized that part with Zant has like kind of double meaning. At first I thought it was like a, I want you because I want to take your place, I want to like kill you and take your place as the ruler or whatever, but then it turns out he has like later on when they like finally get to fight him towards the end, has like romantic intentions towards her or whatever. I don't remember if that was like a thing in the game or not, but I feel like it does kind of make him like a little bit more creepy. What else? Midna finally calling Link by name once he gets like stuck as a wolf and she's dying is kind of nice. Like from that point on, she like not only is like finally referring to him by name, but also just being like a bit nicer to him. That's pretty cool. One of my favorite additions actually, and I have like a bunch of notes. I have like 2 paragraphs about it actually. Okay, so we get the part where Midna, hold on, I have to like catch my breath for a minute. Sorry, sometimes I just get like so excited I literally forget to like breathe and stuff. Okay, Midna is guiding Link to Zelda as she's like dying and stuff, and we get this whole flashback scene, which does end up being plot important and stuff and affects their relationship, like once they do get to Zelda. They have this edition where Midna and Zelda are actually childhood friends. It's a really cute but kind of sad scene where Zelda, there's like this fountain, and Midna finds this like magic stone in the forest or whatever, and it basically acts like a mirror where they're able to talk to each other, and they end up becoming like childhood friends. And it explains why Midna already knows and trusts Zelda, like why they recognize each other when you go to like meet Zelda at the beginning of the game. And I like how we get to see their POVs of like that childhood meeting, like the same scene but their perspectives and stuff, where like on Midna's end it's that Zelda asked to be friends and then one day just stops showing up, and then on Zelda's it was that she like finally gets to make a friend that wasn't chosen for her. And Midna, you know, she does and says like pretty much whatever she wants, and Zelda's like, whoa, I never get to do that. So like Midna kind of teaches her to loosen up a bit and stuff. But yeah, the Zelda sacrifice scene, I think because of this little like backstory part we're given, ends up being like 10 times more emotional, because, you know, Midna's like literally dying and saying like, no, you have to save Link, he needs to save Hyrule and stuff. And at the same time of Zelda like already trying to sacrifice herself, and Midna's like, wait, hey, what are you doing? And Zelda's like confessing about wanting to apologize to Midna over the childhood incident thing. And it just adds like so much more to her character. There's also, it's kind of interesting, like Midna and Link have more like kind of more like physical gestures in this, of like hugs or like a kiss on the cheek and stuff throughout the adventure. And then Midna and Zelda on the other hand have more kind of romantic lines a little bit. I guess it's like I don't know how else to interpret my only treasure was you, getting like 3 pages worth of that dialogue being spelled out. It's mostly like Zelda towards Midna. That's what's kind of funny to me. Like I don't really like ship any of the characters in this, but I kind of feel like I do a little bit because of the manga, where it feels like both Link and Zelda seem like they kind of crush on Midna a bit. Oh yeah, there's a part, I don't remember it happening in the game. I'm assuming it's like manga exclusive or something. It ends up being like almost a whole volume anyway, where Link ends up getting like too drunk on power of like having the Master Sword and like believing he's invincible. It's the point where it like creates like Shadow Link. They have to like fight for a bit, and then Midna says she's going to leave him because she's like, hey, you're not listening to me until you like get your shit in order, I'm gonna bounce. And then yeah, Link ends up being overconfident, he ends up getting defeated. It ends up being this thing where he like stabs Shadow Link, but it actually like stabs himself, but it like shows up as a physical wound. And it matches with like his whole backstory of losing everything. And then the hero Shade shows up in the form of like an old man and gives Link this like pep talk about being the chosen one and stuff, which I thought was cool because like, you know what, all the Links kind of go through it honestly, but like specifically this one, because you know he had to go through like multiple different games of adventures and stuff. And then the cherry on the top of Link kind of coming to his senses is it turns out that Midna was actually waiting for him the whole time. She didn't actually leave him or anything. It was just that she was like literally invisible for whatever reason until he gets better. And they hug and she's like happy about it and stuff. And then the rest of the chapter is about this girl named Anika. I don't remember her from the game, so I'm assuming she's like a manga exclusive character, and she's like the person that was taking care of Link the whole time. And it's kind of nice we get the like the normal person that we don't know like perspective of someone whose like entire town was killed by shadows and stuff. But yeah, they hang out for a bit and then the adventure continues. I also like that we got a part where we get to actually see where Zelda ends up after getting sacrificed. Ganondorf ends up finding her. Like, she just wakes up in Hyrule Castle and he's just there and he's like, hey, let's chat for a bit. And then they're literally just sitting there having tea. And that seems kind of cool because it turns out that they actually remember and talk about their like Ocarina of Time counterparts. And they have this thing, like I said, I been a minute since I've played the game, but also I never actually finished Ocarina of Time. I don't completely know how it ends. Like, I know that Link gets sent back in time and become a child, but I, like, actually don't know how the game ends. So I guess I was spoiled with that. Spoilers for Ocarina of Time, I guess. But yeah, the characters talk about, like, Zelda saying, like, yeah, I reset time by 7 years, so your whole fight with Link at the end of the game never actually happened. And I think it's cool that the characters have, like, the same memories as, like, their other reincarnated counterparts and stuff, like Zelda having memories of, like, her being the one to order Ganon to get executed, and then the, like, Twilight Princess version of her is born or something, and that's, like, part of the whole reason her family, because you see it in some, like, childhood Zelda flashbacks and stuff of her family being like, hey, you don't need to worry about the Shadow Realm, what are you talking about? But yeah, her whole conversation with Ganondorf is pretty interesting. I liked that addition. I always kind of feel bad for Link because it feels like Zelda and Ganondorf are always, like, one step ahead of him, and every Link just kind of starts fresh of not really know, he's just, like, some guy basically. But I mean, this one's lucky because, like, the hero shade is basically helping him and filling him in on information and stuff. Hold on, I'm gonna, like, keep skipping. After the Sky Temple, Link gets to, like, hallucinate Midna again, and it's nice that yeah, he gets to kind of see her every once in a while. I was gonna say earlier, it reminded me of Howl's Moving Castle a bit, because in that movie it's also about a character that gets, like, transformed into a different, like, form, and the character that loves them is, like, literally able to see through that and, like, see their true appearance and stuff. I'm, like, skipping over so many notes, actually. The fight against Zant was cool. Actually, like, all of the fight scenes, the way they're drawn and stuff, and, like, paneled are really cool. The fight, especially, like, the later ones, the fight against Zant is cool. I like the concept of, like, the more, transformed the Twilly are, the more, like, distorted they become, and Midna being able to recognize, like, individual ones. Apparently there's, like, a castle librarian, like, head librarian that she recognizes and stuff. Link being able to punch Zant in the face should have been in the game, honestly. And then the 9th volume, Link ends up, like, after that fight, being able to find his old friends, gets to reunite with them. I'm glad they're not, like, super important to the plot, but I think they're a cool addition. And then the start of the final volume, you get to act, it's, like, right before Midna takes down the castle barrier. Link and all his friends get to, like, fight the monsters for a bit. That was pretty cool because there's, like, you know, so many characters he meets on his journey. Something that I thought was neat is that when Midna finally uses the fused shadow to destroy the barrier, we actually get this one panel for, and it's, like, the perspective of, like, her inside of the shadow, because it's basically like a giant helmet, and you actually get to see her in her imp form with, like, the two, like, her two visible eyes, like her natural eyes, because one of them's always covered up. That was pretty neat. And then they have this thing I didn't really like, where after she destroys the barrier, she ends up really weak. And then Link actually just ditches her to go into Hyrule Castle. Not in, like, a mean way or anything, it's just he knows that she's injured, and because he had been, like, physically carrying her, and he literally just hands her to one of his buddies and being like, hey, can you keep an eye on her? And then, of course, she leaves, and she saves his butt in the castle, because then he has to go fight Zelda. And I like the way she's illustrated when she's, like, basically possessed by Ganon, because she has all of his, like, crazy facial expressions, but it's, like, on her body. It looks super weird. And it even has some references to, like, their big conversation earlier, the, like, tea party thing, where and I like how the way that ended was kind of open. He says, like, hey, you could become my ally, and you never hear, like, her response with that or anything. I'm gonna pause for a bit. I'm gonna be right back. Okay, I'm back. I'm gonna try to keep my voice a little closer so I'll talk more to the microphone, just because I'm recording this, like, a couple hours later, and it's nighttime now. Let me see what else. I'm almost done with this, by the way. There's a line that Link has at one point. It's, "Wake up, Ganondorf, killing you once isn't enough for me," and that's like the kind of shit that I wish he could say in the games, not just in the manga. Because there's he doesn't get lines that are like as cool as that. Like most of the time when he's talking to Ganondorf, it's about like his experiences on his journey and him being the hero and stuff. It's still really cool, but that is like the line that's the really cool one. I feel like I have to give like a -1 point, as I wrote in my notes, because there's a section of the Ganondorf fight, because like almost the entire final volume is just that one fight, to the point where the chapters are literally called like Single Combat 1, Single Combat 2, you know. But the part when you ride on horseback and Zelda's with you and she's like shooting the light arrows and stuff, and you have to like, it like stuns him or whatever, and you have to hit him, in the manga they use like one light arrow and it hits Ganondorf and he falls off his horse, and then it goes to the sword fighting segment, and it's like that segment's way harder in the actual game. Like, I know it's the manga, so I have to like, you know, streamline it a little bit, kind of like with the dungeons. They don't actually show Link going through like puzzles or anything with it. It just cuts from like dungeon item, boss and stuff. But like, at least make it a little trickier, especially because he spends so much time with like the other parts of the boss fight. I was like, aw, it's a boo on accuracy, I guess. Or at least I kind of struggled with it, because it's like, I mean, you're not the one aiming arrows, but you know, the horse is still a little wobbly. You have to rely on like an NPC character and stuff. Like, it's not like super easy. Anyway, I mentioned it earlier, the hero's shade showing up for that final fight. That was like one of the coolest things in the manga. I wasn't expecting that, especially because, like I said, he has like a bit more of a role here. Like he mentions about the reason why he hasn't been able to pass on, because he tells Link like, okay, I have no more skills to teach you. That was like my whole point of being here and stuff. You know, besides like keeping an eye on the Twilight Realm. So it's basically that he like sort of seems to leave, but not really. But anyway, it's nice that he refers to Twilight Princess Link as like being kind of like a son, and Zelda even gets a chance to like say goodbye to him too. That was kind of neat. I was wondering if it was going to be a thing of like, you know how the Zeldas and Links know each other, and the specific version of Zelda, at least with the manga, seems to have the memories of like her Ocarina of Time self. So I thought that was maybe the reason she was like excited to see him. I don't remember what her line she says is. It was kind of sweet. I actually still have the that specific volume. Oh, okay, I got lucky. I turned to the page. It's your feeling feeling your spirit and warmth beside me brings me joy, and she gives him like a hug or something, and then he leaves, and then he's like gone for the rest of the fight. Not for the rest of the story, but just the rest of the fight. I thought it would do this thing, you know, where sometimes they show like a character's like other form or whatever. Maybe it would have like a picture of the Ocarina of Time Zelda or something, but still a nice moment. I think I mentioned this earlier. I was a little worried how the part when like Midna's restored to her true form and Link sees her for the first time at the end of the game, how that was gonna go, because like the manga, like I said, has already like seen her, not like constantly, it was literally just like 2 times, but still it was treated as like a big moment in the story. But instead it's still sweet. Like he hugs her and he says how, what was it, of like, I'd already seen you before, I'd never forget it, or something like that. Like he kind of had already, like in those previous 2 moments, he was like, who is this person? I wonder if Midna like notices them. But at this point he's like, okay, yeah, I knew it was you the whole time. And it's kind of turned a bit nicer. I think it's especially nice because the dialogue that she says is the same, of like, oh, good, like completely speechless at seeing me. And I always thought that was like partially because, you know, the game he doesn't speak or anything, but here it's kind of nice that he does actually like give a response, you know. It kind of completes the moment a little bit. And then what I was kind of a little surprised about is they have like a big kiss scene and stuff right before she leaves. I thought it was kind of sweet though. Like I said, I don't really ship Link with characters. I feel like when it comes to like shipping with the Zelda series, even though I don't really do that, I feel like for me it depends, you know, because there's so many characters to ship Link with and whatever. I feel like for me it depends on like which game it is and stuff. But it is sort of nice in the manga. I feel like having that like big kiss moment or whatever like feels right, because you can see, and I was noticing that as I was, you know, reading the volumes, that they like sort of liked each other. They already had like physical affection already, of like a couple of hugs or like a kiss. And I think when Link ends up leaving the castle, he gives Midna like a peck in the cheek or something. So that was kind of a nice moment. And it's also, you know, it's like their big goodbye where she breaks the mirror afterwards, and, you know, they can't see her again. There's this part I was wondering about, because like after Midna leaves, it goes to like Thelma and Shade or whatever in the town, castle town, and then we get to see what Zelda and Link are up to. But the part with Zelda, both of those parts are interesting to me, because you see Zelda, it was shown in one of the childhood flashbacks, the place she had been meeting Midna was this like castle courtyard or whatever. That part of it isn't important, but the fact that it was this fountain, and one of the characters explains it like later on, that places like those fountains or the rock that Midna had used earlier in the story are kind of like, what is it, kind of like mirrors or something, or gateways in a sense, not where you can like physically go from like the light world to the shadow realm or whatever, or Twilight realm. Yeah, this isn't Yu-Gi-Oh, my bad. Because I think the only way through is through the Mirror of Twilight or whatever, but it was a place where you can at least like see people on the other side and like talk to them and stuff, you know, as like Zelda and Midna had been doing as kids. And anyway, in the little backstories thing, Zelda's royal advisor guy or whatever orders for the courtyard to be sealed up. Like the fountain isn't destroyed or anything, it's just like there's like a wall that's put up so she can't get through. It's like a brick wall or something to the whole courtyard. But then you see Zelda, you know, as an adult after like defeating Ganondorf and stuff, and the wall isn't in the courtyard anymore. She's there. You can even see like the fountain in the same panel and stuff. I feel a little mixed on that. You don't actually see her use it. On one hand, even though the ending does make me sad of like, oh, you know, Midna's not going to see either of her friends again, I feel like I do understand the reasons why. I feel like I understand it a bit more like reading through the dialogue in the manga, where, you know, Midna knows that like the people in the world of light still don't accept like any of the Twilly stuff. Like you can even sort of see that after there's a part I forgot to mention where Midna, you know, turns in that giant spider form or whatever, and Link's like friends and stuff see that, and the people of Hyrule, and they all freak out thinking she's like going to kill them even after she's like turned back into the imp form. And Link's trying to say like, hey, she's our friend, she just like destroyed the castle barrier or whatever, but they're not paying attention. So it's kind of an example of like with that, where Midna still knows like that, you know, it's like kind of like the attitude that the people of light have, the fact that she wouldn't even be able to like live in the world of light even if she wanted to, because she's, you know, gotta, I mean, besides the fact that she would like literally burn to death, but it's also or that might just be from like the spirit's light, I don't completely remember, but I mean, she's a princess, she's got her own thing going on. I mean, Link, it is a little sad, does tell her like, hey, I can just like come with you or whatever, and she's like, nah, you're the hero of Hyrule, you gotta stay here. It was always kind of funny to me actually with the game. I mean, besides the fact that with the game it was like, actually that was my first Zelda game, so it was like pretty crazy for me to have like that kind of dramatic ending and stuff. But it was funny to me because then it has like this one shot in that cutscene when Midna leaves, I remember, where it just shows like Zelda and Link. It kind of reminded me of like the ending of the movie The Graduate, where the characters just kind of stare at each other and it's like, now what? You know, especially because, like, with this specific Zelda and Link, they're basically still, like, strangers. They don't really know each other. They were only just really, like, friends with Midna. That was, like, the one thing they had in common, you know, besides having the Triforce, of course. And I felt a little bad because it's like, if it was almost, I was gonna say any other, but that's not true. Some of the other Zelda and Links would have been like, awesome, they get to stay together. But with this one, it's like they're strangers. It still doesn't feel like a nice ending. But anyway, back to my original point. It shows Zelda with the fountain. So like, on one hand, I'm like, it would be kind of lame if it's like, you know, Midna broke the mirror. You know, it's like not even in pieces. It's literally just gone out of existence now, like on purpose. You know, it was already dangerous for the people, you know, in the world of light and stuff. And now, you know, the plot of the game can't ever happen again, because no one can cross through and stuff. Like, I totally get it's like a safety thing. So it would kind of, I mean, if they had the fountain, you know, they couldn't cross through, but they would at least be able to talk. I feel like it kind of sweetens the ending. Doesn't completely destroy it now that I think about it, because I'm remembering, like, right, the fountain would only be used for communication. They'd be able to, like, talk to her and at least see her. They just wouldn't be able to, like, physically interact with her. So I guess that's kind of like a nice workaround. I mean, again, it isn't said or shown that that's exactly what they're going to use it for or anything. It just shows Zelda, hold on, I'm, like, going back. Going to that location and the wall is gone, and like that's it. But I like that they added that, and the whole thing, the fountain already being established already, so it could be like they don't have to lose touch forever. And then something else too, I didn't realize until the end, you know how like for the player in the game you get the horse whistle thing from Elia. I don't remember when in the story, and then you're able to use that instead of the like the grass whistle or whatever, and it gives you the ability to call Epona at any time, which is super useful because you don't have to like run around Hyrule anymore. And in the manga, I think Link's only with Epona like twice, I think at like the beginning, because then she goes missing and then she ends up finding him later on. He gets to see her, and then she gets teleported away, and then at the end, he gets to ride her for the horseback fight with like Ganon and stuff. And they even show throughout the story that Elia keeps trying to give him the like horse whistle thing that she made, and she keeps not being able to because Link keeps leaving. But yeah, it didn't kick into me. I was like, that's probably why Epona isn't there much. But I noticed she does end up becoming friends with the guy that's like obsessed with the Sky Temple or whatever. And I noticed in the ending he does. It seems like they're almost setting her up with him. Of like he shows up to Orden Village at the end. It shows Elia holding the whistle, maybe hinting of like, oh, she's gonna give it to him instead. But I thought that was kind of nice. You know, like I feel bad for Elia because like, you know, she's like Link's childhood friend or whatever, and then he leaves, and that's kind of about it. But especially with the manga, where it seems like they sort of liked each other, like at least a little bit. At least it seems like a little one-sided, and then it's like very obvious at the end that Midna's, you know, actually the one that Link wants. But it's nice if they kind of work around if they're going like, I don't know, pairing people up or whatever. That she potentially ends up with something. And it is kind of nice. I don't remember exactly what happens with Link at the end of the game. But in this, you know, he doesn't go back to Orden Village. They'd say something of like, oh yeah, he's welcome to come back when he's ready, whatever. And instead he goes to return the Master Sword. I'm assuming that has to happen with the game too. I mean, it always does. It's like always the same sword and everything. Oh yeah, I forgot about that. I was just remembering the part with the Temple of Time. I completely forgot to mention it. It was kind of cool. It shows Link going in there, and you see like a ghost kind of Child Link running in and then fighting Ganon at the end of Ocarina of Time. That was cool. That's the one thing with this game where I'm just like, it's punishment for me not finishing Ocarina of Time, where it especially shows with the manga there's even more connections to Ocarina of Time of like besides the Hero Shade, but we're like seeing stuff about Ocarina of Time. They talk about the ending and all this other stuff. And I'm just like, man, every Zelda game just connects to that one, huh? It's like so critically important. I mean, I know that's where the timeline split comes from, and I'm just like, damn, because like reading this makes me want to play Twilight Princess again, but like I'm already playing Majora's Mask, which that one's also tricky in that like all the NPCs are from Ocarina of Time, or like they're the models, and I've never actually finished the game, so I feel like I just kind of have to at some point just to see how it ends, and you know, for like story purposes and stuff. But anyway, I'm getting a bit off track, but yeah, that is the Zelda Twilight Princess manga. I wish I found a better picture of the box. I feel bad I didn't like remove the white background, but I originally had like half an hour for this and I was like, okay, I need to start immediately. But yeah, it's really cool. Let me talk about the box set as well. Like I said, I got that for Christmas. I actually have it in my room. I kept it on like my dresser and stuff. It's pretty cool. It has like a little Velcro thing at the top and a little, it's not visible in the picture, but it has a little carrying case. I mean, for something that cool, I would never carry it outside of my house, but nice. It's like super easy to get the books out and stuff, and every like side panel of it and stuff has like different artwork. That was something that was interesting. I kept seeing the story and art thing was always by the same person, but Link, you know, as you can see, seems to be in like very different art styles, and you even have little images of that on like the spine of the books and the cover as well. The cover art and everything, like all the art in general, but especially the cover art is like beautiful and stuff. And I think some of the Zelda mangas have like different artists and stuff, because I noticed there's at least like 5 that are all by the same person. I was trying to because I have the Ocarina of Time manga. I'm probably gonna read that next, but I was trying to see if I can find like the Majora's Mask one as well. But yeah, if I end up reading those, I don't know what order I'm gonna read those. It depends like when I finish Majora's Mask and if I decide to play Ocarina of Time myself. But I'll probably do reviews on those as well. I don't have like that many manga series. It's really just like the 2 Zelda ones I have, and then some volumes of other stuff. But yeah, it was cool to actually read the whole thing. It's nice to have them as like physical copies and stuff. They're all, at least with the Twilight Princess ones, each volume, there's 11 of them, like I said, are actually pretty short. I mean, I know it took me like the entire day to read through, but it was like I was really taking my time with the pages, because like I mentioned, there's like a lot of story stuff in here and backstory stuff they add, so I'm like reading slowly to make sure I understand everything. But it is super helpful, of course, if like you've played the entire game before you read, not just like the Twilight Princess ones, but I'd say any of these, you know, because then you're like already like familiar with the story and stuff, and you get to kind of just sit back and enjoy, you know, pay attention like I was to like more of the changes of like new things they added. But yeah, I liked the new stuff. I can finish off talking with that. I keep thinking about Zelda. It was what I was gonna say at the beginning. Actually, I really liked that they added the like backstory connection stuff, not just like her thing with Midna, but also kind of explaining about how like Zelda was raised and stuff. Because like I said, I feel like this Zelda is kind of a bit more like cold than some of the other ones. I feel like you don't really get to learn much about her, and it always felt in the games like she has more of a connection to like Midna than in, you know, anyone else. And that, I mean, Midna really is kind of like the protagonist of Twilight Princess rather than like your sidekick helper character, and Link's kind of just there. But it was nice with the manga that like, you know, Zelda gets a bit more fleshed out. Link has the ability to speak, gets like a whole backstory and stuff, so it feels like the 3 of them are like a bit more connected. Well, not really like Zelda and Link, but like Midna with the other 2, I guess. I like the scenes with Ganondorf as well. I kind of forgot about like most of his dialogue, honestly, from Twilight Princess. I like his little like speech he gives when he dies, and his whole goal of like, I'm gonna not just like getting revenge for the stuff in Ocarina of Time, but also he wants to destroy the like reincarnation thing or whatever. He's like, I'm gonna fully kill the hero of time and whatever, and like fully break the cycle and stuff. And he has this line about like, you know, power will always be needed, I'll be back and stuff. I almost wish we could have seen like a little bit more of him, honestly, because you only really kind of see him towards the end. I think he's like actually shown like physically on a page, like probably by like volume 8 or 9, and when he's like fully introduced into the story. Like, I understand why it has to be that way, because for the entire game, in, you know, in the story and stuff, you're supposed to believe that like Zant is the main villain and he's the one that's controlling everything, and then it's, you know, like the big reveal of like, nah, it's Ganondorf. Well, less that it's like Ganondorf, because you see him like literally get executed towards the beginning, but it's more of like, hey, he actually didn't die and he's been controlling things like literally from the shadows and stuff. But yeah, this was really good. It's kind of funny to me. I feel a little bad. It took me like, I've owned this for like a couple years now. And I tried reading it. I was really into it and stuff. It's just, it's my fault with the way I was going to make the videos, but I feel like it was easier to read the whole thing, take some notes, and just kind of give like my overall opinion and stuff. But the fact that I finished it in like one day, that shows you like how short it is. Like I started at like 8:30 in the morning, finished at like 7:30 at night. Of course there was like meals and things between, but yeah, it isn't like a super long read. I mean, it does like completely skip over like most of the dungeons and stuff, and a lot of like cutscene things are gone. Like, you know, you probably noticed I didn't talk about like some of the temples or any of the Zoras and stuff, where I feel like at that point it was kind of like very straightforward with stuff with the games. But yeah, really enjoyable. Like I said, please only read it if you've like completely played through Twilight Princess. They spoil things immediately, and I'm assuming the other mangas are going to be like that as well. That's why I don't really want to hop onto the Ocarina of Time one yet, or even trying to find the Majora's Mask one, because I haven't like fully finished those games yet. I don't want to get spoiled on any more stuff. But yeah, it was really good. I recommend it. The box set is the box itself is really pretty. Oh, and it also comes with a poster. I didn't even find said poster until I pulled out the last volume, and I was like, oh, there's something else in here. I don't know if I'll put that up, but yeah, I at least recommend the box set. I thought it was pretty cool. Pretty like convenient storage as well. It doesn't take up much space. I don't even think I'm going to put it in my bookshelf, because I like looking at the different panels. I think the art looks really cool. Alright, that's pretty much my thoughts on it. Thanks for listening. Bye bye.